My daughter-in-law banned me from the family camping trip. The property deed changed everything. I found out I wasn't invited the same way you find out someone blocked you, by accident, and way too late. It started with a group chat notification popping up on my son Daniel's phone while he was in the shower. I wasn't snooping. I was just bringing his laundry in when the screen lit up. Lake trip confirmed. Can't wait. Melissa. Lake trip? I froze. We've had a family camping trip every summer for 12 years. Same place, same cabins, same stupid marshmallow fights that always end with someone burning their fingers. And suddenly, I'm not invited? I didn't say anything right away. I'm not dramatic. I've lived long enough to know jumping to conclusions makes you look foolish. So I waited. Dinner that night was quiet. Too quiet. Melissa, my daughter-in-law, was unusually cheerful, talking about packing lists and bug spray like she was hosting a TV show. But here's the thing. She never once looked at me. That's when my stomach started to sink. Camping trip coming up, I asked casually, cutting my chicken like I didn't care. Daniel hesitated, just for a second, but I saw it. Yeah, Mom, he said. Just a small thing this year. Small thing? 12 years isn't a small thing. Melissa finally looked at me, smiling that tight, polite smile she uses when she's about to say something rude in a nice tone. We thought it might be better to keep it more relaxed this time. Relaxed? I almost laughed. Am I stressful? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Oh, no, she said quickly. Too quickly. It's just different dynamics now. Different dynamics. That phrase sat in my chest like a rock. I didn't push further. Not yet. Because I know Melissa. She doesn't like confrontation. She likes control. And whatever this was, it wasn't accidental. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every interaction from the past year. The subtle comments, the way she rearranged my kitchen when she visited, the time she told me things are just done differently now. Differently meaning without me? By morning, I had made up my mind. If there's one thing I don't tolerate, it's being quietly erased. So I called Daniel. Be honest with me, I said. Was I uninvited or was I never invited to begin with? Silence. Long enough to hurt. Melissa thought it might be better if you skipped this year, he finally said. There it was. Clean, simple, brutal. And you agreed? Another pause. I didn't want to make it a big deal, Mom. I actually laughed this time, not because it was funny, but because it was ridiculous. Not a big deal? Being cut out of a family tradition I started? Because yes, I started it. Back when Daniel was 10 and we could barely afford a weekend away, I found that little lakeside property. It wasn't fancy, it was barely livable, but it was ours. Or at least, it used to be. Do you even remember who bought that place? I asked quietly. Of course I do, he said. You did. Then why am I being treated like a guest who overstayed her welcome? He didn't have an answer. Or maybe he did, just didn't want to say it. After we hung up, I sat at my kitchen table staring at an old photo. Daniel, missing 2 front teeth, holding a burnt marshmallow like it was a trophy. Melissa wasn't in our lives back then, but now, somehow, she was deciding who belonged and who didn't. That's when something clicked. A small detail, one I hadn't thought about in years. The property deed. I stood up so fast my chair nearly tipped over, because if Melissa thought she could rewrite family history, she clearly had no idea what was actually written on paper. And suddenly, this wasn't about a camping trip anymore. It was about ownership, control, and a mistake they were about to regret. I picked up my phone again, this time dialing someone I hadn't spoken to in months. Hi, I said, my voice steady. I need a copy of the deed for the lake property. There was a pause on the other end. Everything okay? he asked. I smiled. Oh, it about to be. And as I hung up, one thought kept echoing in my head. What exactly did Melissa think she had just taken from me? Because whatever it was, she was about to find out she never had it to begin with. When I finally got my hands on that deed, I realized something that changed everything. But the real question is, was it already too late to take my place back? The email came in at 9:12 a.m. Subject line, Lake Property Deed. Copy requested. My heart actually sped up. Isn't that ridiculous? At my age, after everything I've been through, a piece of paper still had the power to make my hands shake. I opened it immediately, scrolled, and then I stopped breathing for a second. Because there it was. My name, clear as day. Not Daniel's, not Daniel and Melissa, just me, sole owner. I leaned back in my chair slowly, letting that sink in. All this time, all these years, I never transferred it. I remember thinking about it once, maybe twice, but something always stopped me. A gut feeling, a quiet voice saying, not yet. Turns out that voice just saved me. I actually laughed out loud. Not a polite laugh, not a this is funny laugh. A sharp, disbelieving, are you kidding me kind of laugh. So Melissa thought she could decide who gets invited to a property she doesn't even own? Bold. Very bold. But here's where it gets interesting. Because Melissa isn't stupid. Controlling? Yes. Calculated? Absolutely. But not stupid. So why would she act like she had that kind of authority? Unless she thought she did. That realization wiped the smile off my face. Because that meant one thing. Someone told her the property was theirs, and there was only one person who could have done that. Daniel. I didn't call him this time. No, this wasn't a phone conversation. This was a face-to-face conversation. So I drove over. No warning, no text, no, is this a good time? I rang the doorbell and waited. Melissa opened it, and for just a split second, her face dropped. That tiny flicker of surprise? Yeah, I caught it. Hi, I said, smiling sweetly. Hope I'm not interrupting anything relaxing. Her lips tightened. Of course not, she said, stepping aside. Come in. Oh, I will. Daniel was in the living room, laptop open, looking like a man who already knew he was in trouble. Mom, he said, standing up, you didn't say you were coming. I wanted it to be a surprise. I sat down, calm, composed, and then I placed my phone on the table, screen facing them. The deed. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. Melissa leaned forward slightly, eyes scanning, and there it was again, that flicker. But this time, it wasn't surprise, it was calculation, dangerous kind. Daniel, on the other hand, looked confused, actually confused. Why are you showing us this? He asked. I tilted my head. That's what I'd like to know, I said. Why did your wife think she had the authority to uninvite me from a property I legally own? Silence. Heavy. Thick. Uncomfortable. Melissa crossed her arms. Well, we've been managing the place for years now. Managing? I almost clapped. That's adorable, I said, but managing something doesn't make it yours. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. Mom, it's not like that. Then explain it to me, I cut in, because from where I'm sitting, it looks exactly like that. He hesitated, and in that hesitation,
Everything shifted. Because now I wasn't just hurt. I was paying attention. Melissa thought, he started slowly, that eventually the property would be ours, so we've been making decisions like I don't exist? I snapped. Then that's not what I meant. Then what did you mean, Daniel? He didn't answer. Of course he didn't, because there was no good answer. Melissa stepped in, her voice smoother now, controlled. We've put a lot of effort into maintaining that place. Time, money, planning. It's only fair we have some say in how things are run. Fair. There's that word people use when they want something that isn't theirs. I leaned forward. You can have a say, I said, quietly, when your name is on the deed. Her jaw tightened. Daniel looked between us like a man watching a tennis match he didn't sign up for. And then Melissa said something that made everything crystal clear. Well, she said, shrugging slightly, maybe it's time that changes. I blinked, slowly. Oh, I said, and what exactly do you mean by that? She smiled, that same tight, polite smile. I mean, families evolve. Ownership evolves too. There it was. Not a mistake, not a misunderstanding, a plan. And suddenly, I realized this wasn't about one camping trip. This was about them slowly positioning themselves to take over everything without ever asking. I stood up, very calmly. Well, I said, picking up my phone, thank you for clarifying that. Daniel looked nervous now. Mom, wait. No, I said, I've heard enough. And as I walked toward the door, Melissa's voice followed me, cool, confident. You're overreacting. I stopped, turned, and smiled. No, I said softly, I'm just getting started. That night, I made a decision that would change the future of our family forever. But the real question is, how far was I willing to go to take back control?
I didn't cry. That's the first thing you need to understand. I didn't go home and sit in the dark replaying everything like some broken record. No, I made tea, sat down, and started thinking like someone who had just been quietly pushed out of her own life. Because that's what this was. Not a misunderstanding, a takeover. Slow, polite, strategic. And if I didn't respond the same way, I'd lose everything I'd built. So I made 3 decisions that night. Simple, clean, final. First, I called a lawyer. Hello, I said, calm as ever. I need to make some changes regarding a property I own. We went over everything. Ownership status, access rights, liability, and then I asked the question that mattered most. Can I restrict who uses the property? A pause. Then, absolutely. Good. Second, I called the property manager. Yes, I had hired him years ago. Melissa might have been managing, but legally, he answered to me. I want the locks changed, I said, and I want a new access list. He didn't even hesitate. Of course, he said. Who's allowed? I smiled. I'll send you the names. Guess whose names weren't on that list? Exactly. Third, and this one mattered the most. I made plans for the camping trip. Oh yes, same lake, same cabins, same tradition, but this time on my terms. I invited my sister, my oldest friend, even my neighbor who always joked about wanting to come, people who actually wanted me there. Funny how that works. By the time I went to bed, everything was set in motion. No yelling, no drama, just action. 3 days later, my phone rang. Daniel. I let it ring twice before answering. Mom, he said, already tense, why isn't the key working at the lake? I took a slow sip of my tea. Oh, I said lightly, I had the locks changed. Silence. Sharp. Immediate. You what? Melissa's voice snapped in the background. I almost smiled. Since I'm the owner, I figured it was time I handled things properly. Daniel, we're literally on our way there right now. The kids are in the car. Kids, of course, because nothing adds pressure like grandchildren in the backseat. I'm sure you'll find something else to do, I said. Are you serious right now? Melissa cut in, louder this time. You can't just lock us out. I tilted my head, even though she couldn't see me. Interesting, I said, because a few days ago you didn't think twice about leaving me out. That's not the same thing. No, I said calmly, it's exactly the same thing, just less polite. Daniel exhaled hard. Mom, come on, let's not do this. Do this? I almost laughed again. I'm not doing anything. I'm just using what's mine. Another silence. This one heavier, because now they understood. This wasn't emotional. It was legal. It was real. Look, Daniel said, softer now. We can talk about this. Just let us in and we'll figure it out together. Together. That word again. But here's the thing about together. It usually only shows up when the other side loses control. I already made plans, I said. I'll be there tomorrow. The phone. And for the first time since this started, Melissa didn't have a response, just silence. I stood up, walked to my window, and looked out at the quiet street. Peaceful, steady, mine. Mom, Daniel said quietly, are you really going to do this? I paused, just for a second, because here's the truth. This wasn't about winning. It was about respect. And once that's gone, you don't beg for it. You reset the rules. Yes, I said finally, I am. I hung up before he could answer. The next morning, I packed my bags, same way I had for 12 years. But this time, I wasn't bringing tension or obligation, just myself. And when I pulled up to that lake, unlocked the door with my new key, and stepped inside, it felt different, lighter, like something had finally been set right. Later that night, sitting by the fire laughing with people who actually appreciated me, I got a text from Daniel. We need to talk. I stared at it for a moment, then locked my phone. Because maybe we do need to talk, but not like before. Not with assumptions, not with quiet disrespect. Next time, we talk on equal ground, or not at all. So tell me, if your own family slowly tried to push you out of something you built, would you stay quiet, or would you remind them exactly who they're dealing with? And be honest, was I too harsh, or did they finally get what they deserved? Because here's the truth nobody likes to say out loud. Respect isn't given just because you're family. It's shown or it's lost. And once it's lost, you don't beg for it back. If this story hit you even a little, drop a comment and tell me, what would you have done? And if you want more real, raw stories like this, make sure you subscribe, because the next one, it might hit even closer to home.